feel like something shifted in my mind how I think about business in regards to thinking more generationally. So literally on my phone when it's a business decision, my thought is, how will this affect my grandchildren?
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Radical Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Zeke Freeman. Today's guest is Garr Russell. He's the founder of Fireside RV Rentals. Garr has built Fireside into one of the largest RV rental management companies in the country, helping RV owners turn underutilized assets into income while creating scalable, low overhead franchise models for entrepreneurs. His background spans all sorts of entrepreneurship, sales, and system thinking. He's telling me before the show here, multiple other businesses. So look forward to hearing about that. Garr also brings a bit of faith to his entrepreneurship journey. So love to dive into, how that influences what we do here as entrepreneurs today. So Garr, welcome to the Hospitality Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, brother. Excited to talk hospitality.
Yeah, me too. Well, so I had a great chance to read through your book here on my real estate story. This is super fun, light, easy read, but also just inspiring of, where you come from and how you've built up your business and how you're serving other people these days. So, it starts with, there's a little icon on a lawnmower on the bottom. And I know I share that. I think there's something about every great teenage kid that's hauling the lawnmower behind them. I know I did that growing up, that just kind of roots in this entrepreneurial spirit. So why don't you take us there from your journey of entrepreneurship and where it started and how you built things up?
Yeah, I agree. One of my favorite scriptures is that the gifts and callings of God are without repentance. There are certain things that are just inside of us from the day that we're born, just aching to get out. And yeah, I was born an entrepreneur. So 5th grade, I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I need some money because I need to buy some lawnmowers. He's like, you need to buy lawnmowers, plural. Like, what are you gonna do with lawnmowers? So, well, my buddies are going to push the lawnmowers around for my lawn care business. And my dad wasn't so much of an entrepreneur. And so he thought I was just being lazy. I'm like, no, I'm scaling, Dad. I'm thinking systems and scaling and, profitability. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, that through many other things throughout the years to where we are today. And I love entrepreneurship. I was just telling somebody the other day, entrepreneurship is such a hard road to take. And then I believe you throw in your faith on top of that, being a Christian entrepreneur is even much more difficult because walking the road of entrepreneurship with the Lord, God's okay if you have to circle a mountain a couple times so he can teach you a lesson before he brings you on to, the next thing in your journey. So it's fun. I love it.
Yeah, I think he certainly uses it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your core business? I think this is your core business today, Fireside RV Rentals, what that is and how you guys have been building that.
Yeah, Fireside is basically, we're an RV rental management company. So you know how somebody would hire a management company to take care of their hotel or their Airbnbs or, their rental properties. We're basically that piece for the RV space. So actually, this was 10 years ago in July. I bought my wife an RV for our 10-year wedding anniversary, and we went camping. And she was 7 months pregnant with number 4, and we were in Grand Haven, Michigan at the time. She was miserable, and she decided she was going home. She was not into camping. So I thought, oh my gosh, what's going on? I just bought this expensive camper for my wife, and here I sit around the campfire feeling sorry for myself now. And I had, built a little real estate portfolio. So I thought, well, I'm just going to rent this out the same as I rent out my homes, my apartments. And lo and behold, 2 hours after having it on Craigslist, people are messaging me wanting to rent my camper. And literally one thing led to the next. And here we are now. We're an RV rental management franchise opportunity. We've got 70 locations across the country, and we're in the RV rental business.
That's cool. So I know a lot of people during COVID went out and bought RVs. And so, I've driven across, especially down in East Texas where my folks are from. You'll go around like the lakes and there's just parks of these RVs, sitting there, almost like the weekend escape for all the people in the metropolitan areas to get out to. I've been trying to convince my wife to buy that we should get a adventure van, and that, hey, there's probably some business in here that's a version of Airbnb that we could throw it on outdoorsy. maybe make some money or cover it. How does this business work? And is it from owning let's call it a liability, an RV really? Are people actually turning those into assets? Is it something that, can be profitable, or is it, hey, I've already got this sitting around in the back and let's figure out how to, shake off some dust and get a little bit of profit back to it?
Yeah, so it definitely can be profitable as far as it can make you money. And if you start renting it out, now you get to depreciate it under the same tax code. You can depreciate, equipment and real estate. You get to write off insurance and interest and stuff like that. So it becomes an asset in that fact, in that side of things. But on the other side of things, it's not going to appreciate in value like real estate would or something else. So what I always recommend is if you're going to buy an RV just to rent it, don't buy a drivable RV, first of all, because once you introduce an engine and mileage and all that kind of stuff, wear and tear on an engine, you got to be very careful. But if it's I always say towable travel trailer. If it's a towable travel trailer, you're a lot safer. There's not as many, moving parts to it. And especially if you're going to use it. If you're going to use it, perfect. It's a great way to offset the cost of ownership. You could rent it out here and there and do really well. So for that standpoint, yeah. And a lot of people, if you are using it, a lot of people in our program, they don't use their RVs at all. You talk about COVID, people buying RVs and traveling and doing all this kind of stuff. Man, we have so many people that bought RVs during COVID when they couldn't, go to Mexico and do all the other things they used to do. And as soon as they were able to start doing that again,
Yeah.
it's like, here's the keys to my RV because it's not for me. Because it is a lifestyle, right? The outdoorsy in the mountains, all those kind of things. So it's definitely not for everybody. So is it a good, hey, I'm going to go buy an RV for an investment? I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But if you have an RV, can it offset ownership? Yes. If you're not using the RV, especially those during COVID, and now you need to sell it plus bring 5 grand to the closing table, well, then there's a better way. Go ahead and rent it out and help pay that principal down.
Yeah, that makes sense. Don't go out and buy an RV to be able to turn and make money on it, but you could probably turn a little lifestyle asset into a way to offset some of that cost. Is kind of what I hear you saying. That
Yeah,
pretty fair in
exactly.
general. Is there particular trailers that do better than others, like Airstream versus some other type of RV that rent out at better rates?
Yeah, I mean, the bunkhouse travel trailers are definitely going to rent well, something that's going to sleep a family. But again, if somebody's buying it and they're going to use it and rent it, I always say buy what you want to use
Yeah.
because, there's no point of like, oh, we're going to rent it too. So we're going to get a bunkhouse model and there's only two of you. Like don't do that because you're just not going to be happy with it. But yeah, the bunkhouse are definitely very popular. The drivables are all popular, honestly, because, somebody can get in and just go wherever they want to go. But overall, yeah, bunkhouse models. And then if you get in like an Airstream or like a high-end fifth wheel, you're definitely going to be able to rent those for a lot higher rental rate, but they are a little more nichey too.
And I know this is a niche of the business. Like your business is actually making the money on management, but from us looking at purchasing something. So for an example, we kind of looked at like a 16-foot Airstream trailer. What do you and those run probably around 30 grand or something for a little Airstream. What do you think you could make on those in a year for renting out an Airstream?
So a 16-foot Airstream, that'd be pretty easy for people to come and hook up to and travel in. Plus, they're going to be able to get into like all the state and federal parks because the length is, under 25 foot. So I think something like that would do pretty good. And it's, Airstreams are nichey,
Mm-hmm.
so I would say you could easily in Colorado there get a couple $100 per night for that. And your renters are going to be those they're going to go on a little bit more of a exploration, we'll say. So the rentals are going to probably be longer, 6, 8, 10 days. You can even get like professional couples where it's like, oh, we're going to go for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and, take this whole path and do this cool trip. So yeah, you could do pretty well with one of those. And the nice thing about Airstream too is they're very high quality. So the wear and tear isn't going to be as bad and the depreciation isn't going to be as bad.
So depreciation, if I'm using it for personal and I'm going to rent it out, say I would buy a 30 grand Airstream trailer, can I depreciate the whole thing? All right, guys, I've got one quick favor to ask. If you've been enjoying Radical Hospitality, if these conversations have inspired you, encouraged you, or helped you think bigger about what it means to create spaces that truly serve people, would you hit the subscribe button? It's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference for our show and for our team. We're working hard to bring some of the most thoughtful entrepreneurs, builders, and visionaries in hospitality, people creating meaningful spaces all over the world. And your subscription helps us keep getting better every single week. And if you're someone who's dreaming about building a hospitality project of your own, that's what we do at Root Architecture every single day. We help clients design and bring those spaces to life. You can book a discovery call with me or someone on our team at therootteam.com. Thanks so much for being a part of this journey. It really means a lot to me. Subscribe, stay with us, and let's keep building cool stuff that serve people well.
You can depreciate it as far as exactly how that works. That's always best to talk to your accountant in regards to that. But you can do it under, I believe it's Section 178 tax code. You can depreciate the same as you can real estate equipment, everything. Yeah. I
And
mean,
that's theoretically because it's a business asset now, if it was just my personal and I wasn't using it as a business asset, no depreciation on it.
exactly. Yeah. As soon as you start to rent that out, now you get the depreciation factor there too, and the write-offs of.
So you're making a great case for my wife here, Gar. So, it's going to save us
Yeah.
on taxes. We're going to make some income off of it. It's great. Yeah. So, I think you got to be financially smart about it. But what does the management side of the business look like? Is it similar with Airbnb? Are you taking a percentage of revenue on that?
Yeah, same deal. Yep. We're basically, when somebody enrolls in our management program, they're literally taking the RV or we're picking it up and bringing it to one of our locations. So it's 100% passive for the owner. We're making sure it's maintenance. If any damage happens, we're making sure the repairs are taking place. It's getting cleaned. It's getting, all the things are happening. It's totally passive for the owner. Every month they get their paycheck for their earnings minus any overhead that was removed.
And so, if I own an RV, I want to bring it over to you guys. You guys would manage getting it rented out, or one of your franchisees. Is it like a 15% management fee, or what's kind of a management fee on 30%? What does that run?
Yeah, so the RV space is completely different than all the others.
Yeah,
It's a 50-50 split on revenue. Yeah.
cool.
So for the franchisee, great. Even for the owner too, to have to do nothing, right? Because think about it with an RV, there's a lot more moving pieces. Like I'm in the short-term space too, and my house just sits there, right? My cleaner goes, they clean the house. I never hear from the renters because it's not an RV, right? Hey, how does the gray work? How does the black tank work? Hey, something is not working here. There's so many moving pieces to an RV.
Yeah.
They're getting towed around, set up, tore down, brought somewhere else. So it's very labor intensive on the franchisee side, but it's more rewarding on the franchisee side because of that.
And
And too, right, for an RV towable travel trailer, you're paying it $200 to $400 a month. And if it's rent for $200 a night, you're splitting that in half. Man, you do one rental, a week long rental per month. That's covering all your ownership costs right there.
got it. So if I'm a franchisee, what does my system setup need to look like? And what are the potential revenues for becoming a franchisee of doing this?
So for the franchisee, it's really cool. It's very low overhead because all we're doing is we're partnering with basically a parking lot, somewhere to group all these. Typically, it's a storage facility.
Okay.
And a lot of times that's going to generate a lot of your owner leads for you too. So you're just finding a storage facility that's 15, 30 minutes within where you are. And you're saying, hey, this is what we do. We want to keep our units with you. Bam, there's your brick and mortar location. So you don't have the rent, the utilities, and all that overhead. And then the owner, right, is paying for the storage of the unit. The owner is paying for the insurance while it's sitting there. The renter is paying for the insurance while it's out on a rental. The renter is paying you a prep fee for the cleaning of the RV. If you're delivering the units, the renter is paying for the delivery. So very low overhead operational. And then basically, yeah, the 50% management fee that you get for managing it. The franchise side, because the way the franchise world works, for those of y'all that don't know, is basically you pay a royalty fee to us, the franchisor. Or so the royalty fee is 10%. It starts at 10%, and then it goes down as your revenue increases as a franchisee. Your royalty fee goes down, and that can go all the way down to 5%.
So if I'm that's probably a better scalable business versus just buying a bunch of RVs, that probably don't make money, is help other people who have RVs get some revenue out of them and learn to manage these things well.
A lot better, yeah. On the operational cost side, we've seen a lot of our competitors go out of business during COVID. See, this is the funny thing about this industry is RV dealerships used to rent RVs. That was part of their business
Mm.
model, you know, 15, 20 years ago. That's part of what they did. Then they learned, well, actually, we make more money on doing service work. So get rid of the rentals and add bays on. That's why you drive by a camping world. And it's like you see like a 30 bays where there's guys in there working on these RVs.
Gotcha.
So they got out of the rental space and they focused more on we're selling RVs, we're maintaining them. Well, then about 12 years ago, this guy decided, I'm going to go camping and I'm going to buy an RV for this camping trip. And when I'm done, I'm going to get back and I'm going to rent it out. Well, he got back from his camping trip and he realized there's nowhere to rent my RV out. There's no Airbnb for this. So this guy literally launched RV Share, which is the Airbnb of this space. And there was RV Share that came along right about the same time. Outdoorsy, which I call them like the VRBO of this space, came along.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, I came along and introduced the management piece. And so that basically recreated the RV rental space through a peer-to-peer model like we see in so many things, right? Turo, heck, you can rent your swimming pool, you can rent your backyard, all the things now. And so there was this space. People are getting in or renting out their RVs and like, oh my gosh, I'm making a lot of money. So they started buying RVs and building RV rental businesses. I did the management side instead, which was totally God showing me to do that. None of my brilliance there. And then during COVID, a lot of my competitors went out of business because they had these fleets of 10, 15, 20, 30 RVs. And when all of a sudden the rental space stopped there for a handful of weeks, they couldn't sustain because they had the overhead of the facility, the payments, all the things. I didn't have any of that overhead. We survived that short shutdown and then just kind of moved from there.
Is it hard to get your fleet of RVs? Is it a marketing piece to be able to say, "Hey, we're in business. This is what we do"? How do you build up that fleet of RVs to rent out?
So for us, it's not. That's actually one of the top questions people ask when they're looking to start a franchise. Cause right, they have this internal dialogue like, how is somebody just gonna give me their RV, right? They just paid 30 grand for this Airstream that their wife wanted that was like has all these dreams of using. Now they're just gonna hand the keys over to this random person. So for us, at the beginning, obviously, yeah, right? Because who are you? I don't see you on the internet. But now, we're federally trademarked, 70 locations. We've been doing this for a decade. Now we're literally turning people away. If somebody wants to enroll in our program, they're like, "Oh yeah, we use it 3 or 4 times a year." To us, well, then they use it too much. We don't want to work with them because there's so many RVs sitting around where we just get full time possession of them. So the point we're at now in our business, thank God it's very easy, a very easy pitch. People are like, "Wow, that's brilliant. I've never heard of that. I researched you guys. You're nationwide. Let's do it." Or it's the extreme opposite, like my sister-in-law was 10 years ago when told her the idea. She's like, "That's gross. Why would I let somebody sleep in the bed of my camper?" Like, no, thank you.
Yeah. So do you find like there's a whole world of RVs? Like there's kind of these big haul things. There's the Airstream trailers, and then on the far end, there's like these little teardrops that are super fun and cool. Are people in the franchisees, are they niching at all into, hey, we specialize in certain areas, or are they just across the board all RVs? Like what works well as a franchisees and your business model?
They're pretty diversified. We get franchises who they like the thought of the drivables, right? They don't have to deliver, set it up, pick it up. It's a little less work for them. The renter comes, they give them a walkthrough, and they're off. Those are typically longer rentals, higher nightly rental revenue. But then they realize man, there's people who want a camper delivered to a campground. The drivable isn't going to make sense. So they realize they kind of need that variety.
Okay.
And now too, like fifth wheels have become really popular the last couple of years. And that's why I call it wheel estate in my book is people aren't just renting campers to go camping. Like last weekend, Talladega races were happening. We had 70 RVs sitting there at the Talladega Raceway on the infield. We had Earnhardt in one of our units and another racer. And then so we have Bonnaroo Music Festival coming up. And we have, man, so many different things. Temporary housing. People are renting RVs to set them on the side of a house for like a fire, water restoration, something like that. During COVID, it was mobile quarantine units. We had units sitting at power plants all around where the electrical engineers were there and doing their quarantine shifts. The list goes on and on and on, right? It's a house on wheels. So the applications are just all over the place.
And so you mentioned to store these things. I'm thinking of the typical storage unit lot. Like they seem to be like built out. The ones I'm thinking of, you drive up and they're lot to lot. I mean, this seems like an area where you need a big parking lot or of real estate to park these. Are most franchisees managing a couple? Do you need 50? What are you looking for in terms of the real
As
estate to
far as
hold
fleet
these?
size, you're saying?
Yeah, for free size to start making sense as a franchisee, like, are a handful of these, or do you need 50, or like how much space would you need to be able to store and actually run a profitable business doing this?
20 is a good sized fleet. If you've got a fleet of 20 units, you're earning a nice income. And then as far as the facility size, a lot of our franchises operate out of storage facilities that hold hundreds of RVs.
Okay.
Or they have partnerships. Again, it's just somewhere to mainly to park them. We have a franchise that runs off a property of a landscaping company. We have another one that's partnered with a dealership that has part of their lot they don't use. We have a lot of franchises who are operating off their own property and they're collecting the storage revenue themselves. We have a couple dealerships that are partnered with us, a couple campgrounds that are partnered with us. The main thing really is just grouping them together for logistics. And the other cool thing about this business too is like we've had recently in the last several weeks, several RV repair techs sign up because it's an easy way to add additional revenue to what they're already doing. And so we're actually set up to certify RV techs. So one of our franchisees can go and get our other franchisees certified as RV techs if they're handy, they want to rent out RVs. It's another income stream for them
So
as
if I
well.
was managing 20 RVs, like what could I roughly expect to earn as a annual income?
The way that we break it down, in the franchise world with earnings disclaimers on your item 19, you got to be careful with projections and stuff. So what I do is just very simple. Across all of our franchises nationwide, all the rentals that happen in one year, I just have an average. The average booking is 1,600, I believe, at $42. The average rental is 6 nights. That's all of our units, all of our locations nationwide. Based on that average booking, we just pull out the average rental revenue. So just on the nightly rental revenue, none of the additional revenue that you could make for charging for like deliveries or add-ons, which add-ons you can go through the roof, camping chairs and kitchen kits and living kits and the list goes on and on and on, generators, all kinds of stuff you can rent. On a towable travel trailer, that's going to get hooked up and towed somewhere. It's about $400 net just on the nightly rental revenue per rental. The drivable RVs, it's about $600. And so if you take that, you say, oh, okay, I've got a fleet of 20 units. And these RVs are going out about 10 times per season or more if it's a year-round location. Well, then I'm going to net, X amount. So I always say just take that number and build it by your fleet size and go from there. But we like to see our franchise do what we call a six-figure summer.
Yeah. So at least a six-figure, income off of doing that. Would that end up as a franchise owner being a full-time job, a 10-hour job? What type of time expectation would that take for a franchise owner, and what type of staff would you need to have to run a fleet?
Yeah, it depends on what part of the businesses you want to do and if you're good at delegating. We have franchisees that still work full-time jobs and they've got their team and all they do is delegate. We have franchisees that don't understand how to delegate and they're doing everything themselves, which is fine. A lot of our franchisees to our husband-wife teams, and they do
Hmm.
it together and they love it. So that's totally I've learned over the years how you're wired. Me as an entrepreneur, I'm wired to where I've got my teams, my systems, my processes. A lot of my franchisees are more what I call business owners. I
Hmm.
try to train them to be entrepreneurs. Like, hey, follow the system, get all these people plugged in, and great, open a second location or do whatever else you're going to do. But what we found, most of our franchisees end up being owner operators, husband, wife, family business, team, and they like it.
Yeah. So most of them are running these as an operation in the mix of it. You have some that are, I would land on the business delegation side. If you were going to be on the business delegation side, what type of staff would do you need cleaners? Do you need repair guys? Or those hats that the owners, I assume those, if you're either doing that yourself or you're hiring that as a team. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah, you need cleaners, you need drivers, and you need RV techs to do
Okay.
repairs. A lot of times you can find all in one. You can find
Mhm.
a husband-wife team that can drive and clean and he can rent on stuff and keep things going for you.
Loves
So
doing
you're good
that.
there. Usually what we like to see people do is come in, learn the business, and then from there start to delegate. Getting cleaners is super easy. Getting drivers is super easy. The hardest part of the business really is the repair side.
Okay.
That's where if you're good at, working on things, great. It becomes a money-making part of your business. If you're not, then it's building your team because again, RVs, right? They're going down the road and bouncing all around and like, oh, you press a button to put the slide out, you're like, oh, the slide out isn't moving. What happened here? You gotta figure that out, certain things like that. So that's definitely the trickiest part of the business. And then we also have a program that's called Fireside Plus, where basically I have an office staff that does everything for you but your boots on the ground. So all the calls and inquiries and everything that's coming in, they're handling all those. They're putting it together, all the quotes and the booking and the billing and the contracts and the paperwork and the insurance and deposits. They're literally doing everything but the boots on the ground work of cleaning it, maintaining it, delivering it.
Got it. So, as a franchise company, what are the support systems that you put in place? You mentioned that you have a back of house that helps with some of the bookings. If when a new franchisee comes on, is there training? Is there a book of systems? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the franchise world is you're not starting a business and figuring out, okay, now I got to figure out sales and marketing and operations and accounting and all the things, right? So I love this about the franchise world is literally we have all the onboarding. We have onboarding Zooms. We have the videos, the checklist, the quizzes to make sure you're consuming all the things. We have what's called open office hours where every day of the week at certain times you literally can just click into a Zoom room and there's somebody sitting there waiting to answer your questions about the onboarding or support, or we have what's called fireside chats every Tuesday night where we get on. I usually do some sort of entrepreneurial teaching from a biblical perspective most times, and then we jump into a Q and A. Like 2 nights ago, we had our fireside chats. It was a blast. We had over half of our franchises in there. We talked about, sales and marketing, and then went through and then we do it every year. We do a live retreat, where last year we had over 100 people and we just spent several days together hanging out. And that's to me, one of the biggest things of a franchise, if it's done right, it's the community, right? It's like you're not lonely doing this by yourself because entrepreneurship can be just so lonely sometimes when you're just doing the grind. And what we do, right, is nichey. So it's like you didn't even talk to your friend about some of your stuff because it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What? I do this, you do that, but we're all doing the same thing together. And a lot of our franchisees too are on the corporate side of stuff, which is really cool. So they're not just, mentoring you on accounting or sales or marketing. They're doing it themselves. And then we go way above and beyond what we we put together all the marketing for our franchisees. We send them all the swag. We put up and manage their website. We post social media content for them, and we're super big in AI. Like we're just crushing it on AI. We literally have a guy on our team that I hired 2 months ago. That's all his job is AI system softwares. We just today launched a video creation automation tool that writes the scripts for us. We can read it from teleprompters, puts them, searches what's trending on YouTube, puts it on YouTube with all the tags and all that kind of like he just put a video up yesterday with this new tool we created. And our average video on YouTube will get like a couple hundred views, within a day, which it's a niche audience, right? This first video he did, it had 1,400 views in hours.
That's
And
crazy.
most of it, 80% of it's automated. So we have some really cool tools.
Yeah, I mean, they always say like riches are in the niches, and this is definitely like one of these unique little areas that you've built out and around. I think we kind of talked a little bit about the beginning, you know, from building entrepreneurship to okay, if I want to own an RV, how to do that. If I want to come in and be an operator in a franchisee, how to do that a little bit. I'd love to hear a little bit about now if I'm the guy that wants to build out a franchise. What was the process like to move from being an operator to starting to build out a franchise? And what did that take to build out the systems? Who did you work with? How does that work financially for a franchisor?
Yeah, that was a long, expensive process is what it was, really. And, and it was totally God just convicted me, like, it's time to become a franchise, because you can be in your business, you can get it to a certain stage, and you can feel very comfortable and, right, I'm doing good, I'm earning good money, all these things. And for me, my goal always as an entrepreneur is time. Like, I'm not as motivated by money as I am by time.
Hmm.
We homeschool our 4 kids, we full-time RV'd for 5 years. I always want time. I'm always trying to get my time back. What do I do to get my time? So for me, like, feeling the draw to do this was like, "Oh my gosh, this could be a lot of time and work." But 2, you have this inner pull, right? To like, "Man, I wanna contribute, and I want others to be able to live the life that I'm living, and to be able to help them do that, I gotta put all this stuff in place to show them how to do that." So we went and hired a company to do all the, franchise disclosure document, franchise agreement, all the things, get federally trademarked. It was about a year process, but really what it comes down to at the end of the day, it's just documenting everything you do. And one of my mentors, Russell Brunson, talks about this about document your journey. You don't know where your journey is going to take you. So literally everything that you do, if you have a business and there's sales and marketing involved, and eventually you want to get in front of an audience and create content and cause an impact on the world. He says just start right now, like literally everything you do, document. So it might even seem frivolous to you at the time, like why would I document that I'm getting ready to open my emails, and then next from my emails I take a 10-minute break and I go on a walk, and then after that I do this, because people want to know all those things eventually, like, what does your day look like? What is your process? So that's what I started doing, is just documenting every single thing. And like one of my employees for another company said, because he was very good at documentation, he worked for Yamaha for years and years and years, the musical division. And he always said, man, somebody could pull up to my desk tomorrow. If I got hit by a bus, somebody could literally sit down at my desk tomorrow, open this book, and do my job to a T.
Mm.
And that stuck with me. And so that's what we did. Document, document, document. That's what we still do today. Everything is like constantly review our documents, which is one of the most boring parts. If you're wired like me, right? An extrovert salesman, idea guy, you don't want to document. Dreadful. But that's what we did. We took the process to do that. And then once you get a good framework in place and then you can build upon that. And then after that, really, it was just casting the vision to people. Hey, this is what I'm doing. If this is of interest to you, here's a call to action. Fill out this form and learn more. And literally, it started my first location outside of mine. I literally gave them a location and said, hey, be the guinea pig and we'll do this together. And then after that, it was a business in the box for $995. And then it was a business in the box for $4,995. And then eventually it became the franchise for $50,000. And then once we learned some more about the business, we learned we can actually bring our pricing back. So we brought our pricing back, and you just constant tweaks, changes, process, system, and people. I can't say enough about people, having the right people to be able to do that.
Yeah. It seems foundational for all entrepreneurship is really creating good systems for your people to be able to step in and do. And it's evolving now with AI on how to be able to create those documents and systems. I think all of us come to a position where, we're looking at either if you're looking at scaling, there's a couple of routes. Do you continue to build up your own team? Do you start another location, or this is kind of a third route of, do you go ahead and franchise? When do you think it makes sense to, when you're scaling, and maybe particularly in your system, not to just create another Firestone location that's under your umbrella versus create a franchisee that can go and do that, and you can be the support system for that?
Yeah, we've decided the route of just not opening a bunch of corporate locations.
Hmm.
We'll kind of go back and focus on that a little more once we start introducing the real estate side. Because to me, I call that the generational wealth portion of what we're doing. Like with our franchisees, the ultimate goal is that they own the real estate that they're operating off of and that we're partnered with them on that.
Mm.
So eventually we'll start to do that. And I just always think, I don't know, something happened when I turned 45. I don't know how old you are.
45.
I'll be okay. Well, I'll be 48 in June, but when I turned 45, I feel like something shifted in my mind how I think about business in regards to I'm thinking more generationally. So literally on my phone when it's a business decision, my thought is how will this affect my grandchildren? So I'm starting to think more, not just how can this add more revenue for me or build my portfolio or anything right now. I'm thinking about how will this benefit my grandchildren. So that is really helping me because as an entrepreneur, it's so easy to just get off track with so many different ideas and opportunities and this and that, especially with AI. Oh my gosh, you can bring an idea to life so fast now. But to me, there's got to be, so my conclusion in all that is there has to be an asset tied to it and there has to be a passive recurring income to it. And
Hmm.
so that's why we're sticking with, selling and launching franchise or selling franchises because the royalty, the passive revenue side. And then, and then as the opportunities present themselves, adding the assets to them, which like, right, we just build a software out for our industry. So that's an asset to be for this. And then adding the real estate campgrounds, like I was telling you about, campground storage facility, white glove, all that. That's the asset side. So thinking asset and recurring revenue that can just simply plug into the systems that are already in place. If it's something I got to create a brand new system to do at this point, it's like, what's the point of doing that when I could just throw fire at what I'm already doing?
Yeah, I don't know if you, probably like most of us, read Rich Dad Poor Dad. This kind of idea in
Exactly.
the beginning of creating assets. Now, and I'll say one of the things that I didn't mentally click is, buying assets is difficult and it's costly, to buy real estate. But you can also, especially in the world that we're in, create both digital and business assets when most of us who don't have a lot of capital, or even if we do have a lot of capital, you may be able to create a higher returning income on your cash if you're building out systems that are businesses and you own those businesses. So it's a really interesting way to look at it, and it also allows for more scalability versus had you gone and taken all your capital and purchased one RV site. That's great. You own the asset, it's growing, it's appreciating. However, the scale of that is going to be a slower path versus, even this, rather than my initial conversation, do I go and I purchase some RVs and put them out for rent? Well, you could take someone else's RVs and you could offer a service and then you could scale that. And I imagine the upfront capital cost on that is lower. And you can start to focus on building out that systems. That's really interesting to me. And I think it's a little change in our generation as we've looked at different types of especially this is paralleled with the Airbnb model of, do you buy the Airbnb? Do you co-host the Airbnb for somebody else? And I don't think I'm less on the fence if there's a right or a wrong, but maybe there's more of a timing aspects to it of where you are in your business. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think too, the big thing that that our generation doesn't want to miss right now is all the baby boomers that are retiring and literally just shutting down their businesses. We acquired a restaurant a year ago next month that we literally got for pennies on seller financing from a baby boomer. One of my buddies just bought a golf cart repair business that does $1 million in repairs a year for $10,000 down in seller financing. There's all these, and there's these guys that are literally just closing their businesses. I'm looking at a little bait and tackle shop right
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
that the guy bought it, built it up, but his son doesn't want it. And we're just going back and forth on. He agreed to all my terms but the down payment, and I'm just kind of waiting for him now. But yeah, so
And how
it's a
much does that bait and tackle shop make a year? Like what's its gross or one of these businesses that you know offhand?
well, that one on the books, it does about 400,000.
Thousand on a little bait
Yeah,
and tackle shop. How many pieces of rental income, houses would you have to, have something that's grossing 400K?
yeah, and it's got the real estate tied to it. It comes with the
That
the
has real
the
estate with
lot and
it.
the building. Yep, yeah, it's just a simple, boring business. It's a
It's
little
not as
drive through me.
sexy as, the brand new condo on the beachfront that you can rent out. But there is hundreds of these little mom and pop businesses that they've spent their life building that you're right. Like, the business of entrepreneurship, some of us are made to build things. Some of us are great operators that can hop in and really think system wise and can maybe turn that little bait and tackle shop to like an online business and have great marketing. And all of a sudden, you're taking legacy and pulling it down, which is, yeah, I think we need more of that. It's a very cool way to
Yeah,
operate things.
so agree.
So is that your focus right now, is moving into business acquisitions?
Just as they present themselves, I'm not actively looking for them. My core focus is what we've been talking about, but as opportunities present themselves, and like the restaurant, that was my wife's idea actually, and it was really just the main goal of that was first, it had to have an asset tied to it of real estate for me to do it, but it was more about teaching our kids about hard work and entrepreneurship and customer service. And so like on Saturdays, the whole family works there, all six of us,
Awesome.
and then a couple of our staff. And so our 9-year-old bakes stuff that she sells there. Our 11-year-old is there several days a week doing dishes. Our 17-year-old is there full time. We just graduated her. She moves to California next February to go to YWAM, and she's working there
Oh
full
my,
time. Yeah, so it's great for them to learn and work in the business.
where's she going in YWAM? Which base?
Huntington Beach.
Okay, cool. I've had a
Yep,
couple of
she's
my
been with
young
Tim.
life kids go through YWAM programs, and one's
Have you? Okay.
New Zealand, and it's pretty fun program. Kids getting out and see the world.
Yeah, yeah, she's been to the Texas camp most of the time she's been. Then she went to Huntington Beach last year, and then this time she moves there for like 4 months, and then they dispatch her to like a country for a couple months. So this is like their I think it's called their circuit riders, maybe. I forget what it's but yeah, this is her going off into adulthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to speak to the young entrepreneurs, young Christians that are, looking ahead, and what advice would you have for them? How has faith played in your journey of entrepreneurship that you speak to these kids?
The biggest piece of advice I would have is to take massive action and to know that you're never losing, you're always learning. Especially younger so afraid of, oh, what if this is the wrong decision? Take massive action because especially the cool thing about doing entrepreneurship as a Christian is like Romans 8:28 says, God uses it all. He works all things together for the good of those who love him. So take massive action, but the biggest mistake you can make is to not take action because not taking action or indecision is a decision. So if you're not making decisions and not moving forward, you're literally going backwards. So I call it, faith over fear. You gotta make a choice, move forward in faith, knowing that if it's the wrong decision, God's going to use it to teach you something. And it's just going to be part of your story. One of the things that I love to do and encourage people on is to wear your faith boldly in the business world because I was always taught until literally 3 years ago, I didn't talk about my faith much in like my marketing or any of my stuff until God really convicted me of it in 2022. Basically, he said, Gar, you're called to serve Christian entrepreneurs. That's got to be part of your messaging so that you can attract them. And somebody, right? Don't talk politics, don't talk faith, no, don't do that. You'll know a tree by its fruit. Like just live it out. No, or we even talked about this at church a couple of months ago. Our pastor said, you've heard that saying, like, he said, there's a saying out there, well, people will know you're a Christian by your actions, not your words. He says, he like literally traced that saying down. I forget the exact saying. He traced it down. He's like, he said it was said by like Billy Graham or something. He said, that's not true. That was Billy Graham never said, or live your faith at all time, use words when necessary. I can't think of the exact quote, but he's like, that's not true. That was never a quote. Like, no, you lead with who you are. And that helps to weed out the people you're not called to serve, you know? And so, yeah, I would just recommend take massive action.
I love it. I think there is so much of a like historic culture of the rich guy has a better chance of passing through the eye of a needle than making it through the heaven that was just so distorted, and there's this separation of church and marketplace that needs to be overcome. Some of the greatest lessons I've learned in faith in my life has come through leaning into the callings and passions that I have. You think about the parable of the talents. Like God said, the guy that he gave the talent to and he went and buried it versus the guy that took the talent and invested it and fruition. Part of that was about the journey of who we become on these entrepreneurial callings. Like these things are put into us for a reason to pursue, and they're put into a way we need more people of faith stepping out and showing how to live this life in a way that you can be successful. You can create opportunities and jobs and places for people, and you can bring that passion that's been placed into you into the marketplace, and the fruits of that are both spiritually and physical. And if you'll lean into it, I think there's opportunity that God has put into all of us. So super cool, Garr, to see your story, learn about it, the things that you're doing with Firestone. Just keep encouraging everybody out there. If people want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to reach out and do that?
Yeah, if you want to jump on my website, Garr Russell, GarRussell.com. That's got a link to our different businesses. Any of the books that I published, you can download them for free. It's different podcasts, all the different things are on there. Yeah.
Well, super good. Yeah, I do recommend go out and get his book. This is a great, like I said, simple but just timely read. Speaks to the heart of entrepreneurship and faith. If any of this speaks to you, I encourage you guys to go and follow Garr. So thanks for your time hopping on the Radical Hospitality Podcast.